Hello, my beautiful mommies. I titled this video as "They Don't Teach You This in Business School." I may change it to "They Don't Teach You This Stuff in Business School." And I got the title from when I was pregnant and I was at the OBGYNs and I ran into a girl that I went to graduate school with. And we were both pregnant and we saw each other, and the last time we saw each other was literally in class doing our capstone. So now we are huge and we just look at each other and we just start laughing. And she said, they don't teach you this stuff in business school. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. I mean, it's just a completely different realm. This is kind of my first start of my journey into learning about feminine energy. Compared to what I had been taught in school, I was a kid born in the 80s, and there was just a lot of masculine energy taught at that time, I feel like, and there's a lot of masculine energy valued, even as women. And definitely in business school for sure, and in the workplace. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but at least that's how it was for me. So yeah, so we were literally laughing because chatting about things that we were, coming across and learning. And one of the things that we both said was listening to our bodies. And it's interesting, I've talked to several other moms who were, from the 80s as well. And so I don't know if this is a generational thing, but we've all said that when we were younger as girls and, early teens, we learned to numb ourselves from the neck down, shut down our feelings, shut down, connections with our body. And it's interesting, I don't think anyone's ever used this specific language when we were growing up, but somehow this is what we learned. This is what the culture taught us and what we learned to do. I don't know if it's from a safety mechanism, like a safety protection thing, but just, to disconnect from our bodies, to not feel like, we said this all the time, don't worry about how you feel, just get on with it, right? That was the thing. Even with, growing up and my parents, it's like, oh, you get hurt, you're crying, and they comfort you, but then the next thing is, okay, you need to move on. So it's interesting because this is where I first started to get introduced, as I said before, to feminine energy. And I'm going to do a couple videos on this, but it's interesting because when I was pregnant, this is when I started to pay attention to my body. This is when I started to pay attention to my hormones, and this is when I started to pay attention to my feelings and my mental health, not shutting myself down, trying to reconnect with my body, checking in with my body, things like this. And so I started to reconnect through pregnancy and hone in on feminine energy, but I didn't know what feminine energy was. To be honest, I knew this idea of what it means to be a female and how to be feminine. But I hadn't heard or even knew about this idea of feminine energy at the time. And so then it's interesting, after I started to reconnect with my body during the pregnancy, then after I had my son, that threw me back into my masculine, because what do you have when you have a new baby? The hospital gives you routines for sleep, feeding, eating, different markers to look for. You're tracking, and it's on a daily basis. I was probably doing laundry once a day, if not every other day. And so all of a sudden I get back into doing, right? When I'm in pregnancy mode, it was more about being and sitting back. And then you know, that first time, being that first time mom, and especially in that first year, I got thrown into the doing, right? Because you have to do, you got to clean the house, you got to feed the baby. Has the baby eaten? Is it time to feed the baby? You know, check on their sleep patterns. Are they sleeping enough? And so just this overactive masculine side of me, which is funny because this was very natural to me. This is where I had lived most of my life. This is where I had lived most of my career, was, you know, time management, being productive. It's all about what you're accomplishing. This is how you're valued. What are the milestones? You know, tracking progress. What's the outcome, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is very much I learned in the masculine energy realm. So it's funny because I got into this again, and of course I was kind of in a flight or fight mode because I didn't have a lot of sleep. And so, you know, you're just kind of, yeah, I kind of felt like, you know, just trudging along and, you know, in survival mode, so to speak. What, not necessarily survival, but in survival mode, and making sure that the baby's taken care of and everything's taken care of. So what did this complicate? This actually started to complicate my marriage. I noticed that I started competing with my husband. And when we got home, especially because I had decided to take some time off, so I wasn't bringing money into the relationship at the time. And so I think behind the scenes, I was desperately wanting to prove my value. And I learned that in the feminine energy realm, it's not about the outcome per se, but it's about the being. It's about the quality time with your baby. It's about making sure that they're not only just physically taken care of, but emotionally taken care of, emotionally connecting with your baby. But this started to cause problems in the first year of our marriage. This is when I started to go and try to seek out what is going on, because we would get in these arguments. You know, we would be competing. You know, he would come home and I would want to share all the things that I had done for the day and I had done for the baby. And secretly, I think I was, in a way, auditioning and wanting to prove to him what a wonderful mother I am and how much value I bring to the relationship, especially because I was no longer bringing in money at the moment, and I had been bringing in money before. So this threw us into kind of like a push-pull dynamic and competing against each other, and it just was icky energy. And, you know, after I would, you know, compete with him and tell him all the long list of things that I had done for the day, of course, he's telling me all the long lists of things that he had done for the day at work and the challenges he went through and, you know, his wins. So I started to struggle. We started to struggle, and there was, you know, resentment and there was arguing, and it wasn't a healthy place. And so I slowly ran across this idea of feminine energy. And boy, did my 80s kid masculine side, my 80s generation masculine side get triggered. When I first heard about masculine energy versus feminine energy, I got so triggered. And to be honest, it took me probably, and I hate to admit this, I probably listened to people speaking about the topic for almost 3 years before I could hear it without getting triggered. I'll say this again. It took me listening and learning and diving into masculine and feminine energy almost 3 years before I could hear the person speak without getting triggered with what they were saying. And it's funny, I'll share one little story. I follow a woman. She's called the Universe Guru. I love her. And she talks a lot about feminine and masculine energy. And I remember jumping on because she had made a comment about how it can be challenging for two people in a relationship to both primarily hold the masculine energy space. And oh my gosh, I got so triggered. I jumped on, and I rarely get on and do comments on posts. I don't let myself get pulled in very often, but I allowed myself to get pulled in. This was early on when I was first learning about it. And I got on and I was saying there are lots of, successful relationships. And I even used the example, Alex and Mimi Icon. Mimi is more masculine energy dominant, and Alex is more feminine dominant, a more feminine dominant male, and they have a fabulous relationship, and it can work any kind of way. And oh my gosh, I was so triggered, and I'm sure she felt this through my post. I was that person. I try not to be that person, but I was that person that day. And she had a wonderful soft reply, and she said, this channel, yes, that does happen, but this channel is for women who are seeking out to learn more about feminine energy and how to be more in their feminine. And so if that's the content that you're seeking out, definitely come here and spend time with us. If you're looking to be more masculine, there are lots of other channels that you can do that. And, there is a way to be successful in it, but I'm, reaching out and building content for women who have been in their masculine, but that are seeking out to be more in their feminine essence energy. And especially in the relationship. This does not mean that you're in your feminine energy at work, but how do you transition if you're working from your masculine energy, which works very well in the business world? How do you transition by the time you get home if your husband is more masculine energy dominant? And I have a lot of things to share on this topic. This has been one of the things that's changed my life through the inner work that I've been doing over the years. And the idea of masculine energy and feminine energy has also not only saved my life, it's saved my marriage. It took me a while, and it took me a while to be open to listening to other ideas, especially other ideas that went against my value systems that I had been raised with, and value systems that I had previously held. But as this woman at the OBGYN had mentioned, and we were laughing about it, that they don't teach you this stuff in business school. And of course, there's a reason. I'm not saying that they need to teach you this in business school, but all the education that I've learned, whether it's through high school, college, graduate school, it doesn't prepare you for motherhood, in my opinion. Okay, let me bring this back to me. It didn't prepare me for motherhood, and it didn't prepare me to have and be in a successful relationship. And it might be flipped. You may be naturally masculine, masculine energy dominant female. And I know, so pause and hang in there with me, because when I first started to hear about this, I rejected it. I was like, they don't know what they're talking about. This is ridiculous. Whatever. Anyway, I will talk more about this, like I said, but maybe you are naturally more of a masculine dominant energy female, and your significant other is more of a feminine energy dominant person. And so anyway, I just want to share that story. And I just thinking back to being in the waiting room and laughing with her, and just realizing that we had no idea, and education does not prepare you for this, and how grateful I am to have the experience of having a baby and becoming a mother. I have also been a stepmom, so just the appreciation of both, and also the appreciation in my life, in my heart, for getting introduced and exposed to feminine energy and learning more about it, and having the patience, 3 years of, rejecting it, pausing, maybe stepping away for a couple of weeks, then coming back and listening to more, because one thing that I was noticing was the way I was doing things was not working. The way my husband and I were interacting, it wasn't working. And I've talked to other women about this. It's funny, people say, why are women all about personal development and inner work? And I'll tell you why, because all of the things we were raised with, they're all great things, but they do not prepare you for these two areas. I feel like they don't prepare you for motherhood, and they don't prepare you in how to have a healthy, successful relationship, no matter what energy you lean more towards. And so definitely be sharing more soon. And I'm excited to share more about this topic because I absolutely love it, and I am so, so grateful. And I hope everyone's doing well, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.